Those holding menorahs did attract each other. I have a favor to ask of you. There is no hurry, but could you bring your menorah to us? I will allow you access to the Labyrinth of Amala from the terminal. I will explain the details upon your arrival. Until then, please ensure that the menorah remains in your safekeeping.
With Matador defeated, this unlocks two things for us. First, we're able to access the Labyrinth of Amala through the terminal, as the Lady in Black says, but we're also able to continue on our path towards Ikebukuro through the rest of the Ginza Underpass. We're going to do that one first because the Labyrinth of Amala is just not really... We're not prepared for that at all. But while we're traversing through the sewers, I think it's a good time to talk about some dumb stuff, you know? So, the Ginza Underpass is probably second place to the Amala Network as the hardest, and by extension, the worst place, in my personal opinion, to traverse through in the early game. And it mainly comes down to just how ailments work. So, SMT is infamous for having the most annoying fucking status ailments of all time. And in the Ginza Underpass, these big-ass motherfuckers, known as Nozuchis, will spam poison moves at you, and what poison does is, in combat, after your action, you'll take a bit of damage, but also in the overworld, since poison doesn't heal, you are basically taking damage every step you take, kind of like Pokemon, I believe. And, yeah, just listen to these people whine. It's just so goddamn annoying to deal with that shit, especially when you can only carry a certain amount of healing items. Nowadays, when I would play base Nocturne regularly, I would have Pixie or my my Ame no Uzume carry the skill that cures poison, but for the most part, it was just always an annoying status effect to deal with. And if it wasn't poison, it was something like Mute from, I believe, the Isoras, or something else entirely, like spamming Kamikaze on Demifiend, having me to restart the whole fucking run from the very beginning. And the great Underpass at Ginza is decently long, and we'll be making a long trip through it in order to get to Ikebukuro. That being said, Insaniax does fix this a little bit, because thanks to Zephyr's genius, all ailments, as far as I know, heal over time depending on the luck stat, I believe. If I go over correctly, it should be that over a couple amount of turns, status effects will eventually heal over. I'm recording this as I'm watching this, and I just realized how I inflicted poison on myself, and not through the Nozuchis. Wow. But yeah, I'm going to speed up through this process just so we can talk about some dumb stuff. So, I guess for small stuff, for the build I'm going for with Nocturne is I'm going to give Demifiend a magic-based build, which is usually a very abhorrent thing to do in base Nocturne, but obviously the mod allows us to use magic a lot more friendly this time. So to basically explain it, in base Nocturne, magic has a really weird fucking sense of working. So, to start, we'll talk about how physical attacks work in Nocturne. And it's pretty simple, you know? As you level up, physical attacks get stronger. Simple as that. For magic, Atlas decided that is too fucking easy. How about we make our magic attacks get worse over time as we level up? So, it's difficult to explain, however, as you level up, every spell in the game, so every magic attack in the game, has a certain peak, where it does the certain amount of damage, the most amount of damage. And once you progress past that level, the peak of the spell's damage will do less and less as you level up more and more. Until you reach, I believe, around level 160, where it is completely at the bare minimum, and it just stays at the bare minimum amount of damage. And, yeah, that is very disheartening as a guy who loves to play as the mage in most D&D campaigns, and by most I mean one. I'm not into D&D. From a fantasy perspective, I do love to play the mage. But that being said, Insaniax allowing me to play the magic build as much as I want fixes things. And going through that, we finally make it out of the Great Underpass of Ginza. There's not really much to talk about it in terms of a place to traverse to. Just a couple gems to find in cash cubes, and a couple lunar boxes, as I like to call them, where the phase of the moon will determine whatever you get. Yeah, that's it. and we finally make our way to Ikebukuro. Upon reaching the city, we're hit with a forced encounter with an Oni. And normally these guys are a big pain in the ass to deal with because they don't really have a lot of weaknesses we can exploit, only weak to ailments. But then I use that on him, and it turns out that Hama is now a weakness to Onis. Thanks again, Zephyr. You made this mod excellently. So, what's here in Ikebukuro? Why is it so important we come here? Well, for one, we're trying to find our friends, but for gameplay reasons, a big fucking change. The Cathedral of Shadows gives us a brand new addition to our skills, which is the Demon Compendium, where we can register our demons into the damn thing and buy them for a very hefty price, but a price nonetheless. We'll be utilizing it more as we develop party for more strategic purposes. Anyways, we head over to the Mantra headquarters, which is not too far from the save, and this is where things get a little dicey. For team building, I recommend you get a couple people that are immune to electricity, maybe at least one person. I mainly recommend you get a lot of people that have buff spells and debuff spells, and a variety of elemental attacks. And thanks to the compendium, you should be able to pull it off. And thanks to my Demi-Fiend, I'm able to pull off that stuff. And make sure you have these Magatamas equipped. Shiranumi for fire resistance, Yafumi for force resistance, you should already have it for Matador, and Kamogori, I believe, that for physical resistance.
What the hell's your problem?
I came looking for booty. I ain't got no milk, no cookies, nothing. I came looking for man's butt.
No way.
Now, I tell you what, I like you, and I want you. Now, we can do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way. The choice is yours.
So we're captured and thrown in jail for existing, and this Pyrojet comes up to our cell and tells us that if we're going to make it out of here, we have to win a trial by combat. And by that, it means we have to win something that's against our odds. However, strategically, we can beat the shit out of everybody we do. So we walk in and we prepare to fight. The first fighter is a two-headed dog known as Orthrus, who specializes in fire attacks. This is what Shiranui is for. Orthrus will literally do nothing but spam fire spells and use one single physical attack, which I believe is Stun Claw, which has a chance to stun, as the name implies. However, it's not too bad. As long as you keep Demi-Fiend alive, it doesn't really matter who dies, as long as you have some way of reviving them. Again, you could actually just have Demi-Fiend as the only person and you could win. It just takes longer to beat. But yeah, Orthrus doesn't last long at all. He goes down in a few attempts. Up next is Yaxini. Now, Yaxini specializes in force moves, and just like Orthrus, she'll do nothing but spam force moves. As for another attack, she has Tentarafu, which is a ailment-based, I believe mind-based attack that will attack all of us and inflict mind damage, so it does inflict some damage, but not enough to make us scared. And I believe Ame no Uzume is immune to that, so it's just even more of a wasted turn. But yeah, just like Orthrus, she doesn't last long at all. As for contestant number 3, well, he ain't gonna be a pushover, I'll tell you that much.
I was wondering when you'd show up.
Yeah, wait, what do you mean?
I was wondering when you'd show up.
Bro, I'm forced to walk in here. You scheduled this, didn't you?
I offer you this moment's repose.
Bro,
to prepare
what?
for a battle. Use it well, for I will not hold back.
Fucking corny, yeah, bro.
We fight!
Alright, let's talk Thunder. So, Thor is obviously the hardest boss of the 3 Mantra Guardians, but that's not really saying much when we're talking about the last 2. But that doesn't mean that Thor is a pushover. In fact, he can actually really kill you very badly if you just get a little unlucky with how he chooses to use his moves. Speaking of his moves, let's talk about it. So, like being Thor, he revolves around physical and electric damage, having a basic attack as well as a unique Insaniax edition known as Defensive Kozuchi, which, in case you wonder what that does, is a single target medium and damage attack that decreases defense by 1 on hit. You can actually see it pulverizes our healer here by doing a crit 150 and targeting the weakness for 153. Thanks, Thor, you fucking dick. But aside from that, he doesn't really use physical a lot, unless he's targeting us with his basic attack. Other than that, he really just spams all target electric moves like Mazio and Mazionga. He does have Zionga for single target, which could be pretty bad if he uses it on his first turn, but he never really did with Might Attempt, so yeah, it's not that big of a deal on my end. But that's enough for his skills for now. Let's talk about his affinities. So, for Thor's affinities, he mostly drains electric and nullifies light, but he actually has a weakness. He's weak to curse ailments and nerve ailments, meaning things like stun or poison. Mainly poison, but sadly I didn't have that on me. It would have been cool, because that would have been fitting, mythology-wise, but I decided to compensate by using Stun Gaze. So Thor is the reason why I was hanging on the Stun Gaze since the beginning of the game, so that I could use it on him so that we'd be able to get through this fight quicker, because I did not want to be stuck on this fight, because during my earlier runs of the fight, I was stuck on the mantra grid for too fucking long. Aside from that, this isn't my first time fighting Thor, so he really wasn't as hard as I expected him to be. I guess it's because I knew how much of a problem he was going to be if I didn't prepare, so trust me, I'm just making it look easy, but it's only because I know what I'm doing. But yeah, utilizing Stun Gaze allows us to get through the first phase of the fight pretty quickly. But once we deal enough damage to him, things get a little tricky. Once we push Thor all the way to phase 2, he'll initiate an extra press turn into his systems, and also use Diamitra, which is a diorama with the ability to cure all ailments, something that came from the SMT4 Apocalypse and SMT5, which is kind of bullshit, but I guess it gives us a reason. Actually, I take that back for one good reason, and that's because Stun Gaze, while useful on the surface, was useful in the first phase, abusing it triggers Thor to cure that status ailment, which would just make it so that he's undoing the damage we're doing to him, which is actually a pretty smart way of making the boss fight not over-reliant on the best possible solution, so yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea. But yeah, he just upgrades his moveset from Mazio to Mazionga, and he'll start utilizing his most powerful skill, which is fucking in the name! To finish off Thor's skill set, he has Dekaja in case we abuse our buffs, which is something he doesn't actually use all that often. And for his unique skill, Mjolnir. Mjolnir is a strength-based electric attack that has a fairly good chance to crit, fairly good chance to shock, and trust me, Demi-Fiend dodging that move could have basically saved the run, and had it not been for our Rakukajas and Tarundas, it would have been worse. Here's a full list or a picture of Thor's boss data on here on screen if you want to take a look at it yourself. Thanks to my prep time, Thor actually wasn't that hard. I actually tried to fight again on an earlier save with a lower build, and I still managed to beat Thor, and it was without Kamagori for that physical resistance, so yeah, Thor was a little hard, but it wasn't really anything to be scared of. Again, when you know what you're doing, it's not really that much to say. Hopefully, bosses later down the line will prove to be a challenge. But I guess since we beat Thor, I can show you something that you've probably already seen, and if you have, well, first off, thank you, and second off, I don't know what I was doing.
Zap, zap, zap.
Ooh, shit, I'm about to die. Shit. Wow. Oh no! Time out, time the fuck out. Fool, what's the problem? Fool, what's the problem?
Wait, what the fuck?
You a bitch, that's what's the problem.
Oh, I'm a bitch!
You know,
says
for
the
a
one
guy
that's been
like
healing
Thunder,
3
you smell like
times his
pussy
whole
rain right now,
fucking
if you
fight.
ask
What are
me.
you talking
Like,
about
it
that
is
I'm a
fucking
bitch?
bullshit.
That's disrespectful.
Or look at your health bar and then look at
I
mine.
heal one time and it's a problem. It's a problem apparently.
Thor, you recovered 500 in just one move. It's not even like the second phase, dog.
You know who you're talking to right now, kid? You're talking to the fucking Butcher of Giants and all of Norse mythology. You don't understand the shit that I've done. You don't understand the shit that I've gone through. And to me, you're the one that sounds like a bitch now, okay? I'm the bitch. Alright, bet. Let me go do all these side quests in hell real quick. And when I come back, I'm gonna one-shot your bitch ass so you can't heal. Well, and while you gone, I'm gonna raw dog your friend while I got the time.
So, With Thor dead, we're able to move on. He gives us the Kamuto Magatama as thanks for beating him, or as more of a sign of respect, which allows us to learn electric skills and gives us the electric immunity, basically giving us the 4 main elements now. Thanks, Thor. And this is where we're at crossroads. We can go see the leader of the mantra, Gozu Tenno, or this would probably be a good time to go see the Labyrinth of Amala for the first time and see what's going on down there. I choose to do the Labyrinth of Amala because I want to get it out of the way as soon as possible, but also because I did want to prepare and get as much money as I can for the next fight, which I was absolutely dreading and I was absolutely struggling on. So let's talk about the Labyrinth of Amala while we prepare for that grinding session. In order to obtain the true ending of the game, we need to complete the Labyrinth of Amala. And in order to do so, we need to complete all the Fiend fights, as well as completing all of the segments of the Labyrinth of Amala, which are these little segments known as the Kalpas. And starting with the first Kalpa, it's supposed to be the easiest, but also kind of bullshit, because the random encounters are a little too powerful for my level. And I don't have Rekarm yet, or at the time of fighting through the Labyrinth of Amala, I didn't. So I did lose a couple demons on the first go here, and I had to come back later. But overall, doing the first Kalpa is pretty easy. Exploring it, we just have to hit a switch, and we open a door, and we head to the giant Trypophobia statue here, talk to Lucifer on the other side, and he tells us that we need to collect more menorahs in order to make it through, and how the end of the world is not really the end of the world, but rather a piece of the puzzle that is reincarnation, and destruction, and creation, and all that stuff. And that this is going on in the multiverse, some DC Marvel level shit, but done to a more melancholic degree. We had the right to turn back immediately, but I decided to go to the second Kalpa because there is an important note here.
Fiend, accomplice to the fallen angel, do you know what cause you serve? Do you realize which path your actions are leading you down? I have watched your every move from above. You have been seduced by darkness. Now, you are about to defy God's will. To the one with a demon's body and a human heart, heed my warning. End your dealings with the fallen angel before your heart is consumed by darkness.
I guess I never really thought about it, but what side do I pick here? It wasn't hard to figure out that it was the devil himself tempting me down this path of destruction. But thanks to the power he gave me, I was able to survive this world. And now here comes God telling me that I have to repent? That I have to not give my thanks for that power? But what has God done for me? I almost died because of him. Or because of Ikawa. Maybe it's selfish to blame God for this. But what do I do? I guess I have to follow with what my heart decides.
May you be blessed by the light. As long as you do not assist him, his evil plans will surely fail. Now, return to your world. Here, the power of chaos will overwhelm you. I am one with God. I am his mouthpiece.
Taking the voice of God's warning into consideration, we decide to leave the Amala Labyrinth, at least for now. On the way back, it can be a little scary if you get ambushed. However, as long as you play it carefully and remember the weaknesses of each of the demons, for example, these Momonofus are weak to force now, then you should be able to get out spick and span. And if Cheddar Skulls get to you, just spam light attacks. They die from light attacks now, and since they do damage, they have a higher chance to hit. Zephyr, again, thank you so much for making them deal damage. That is the one thing I was looking forward to. Anyways, with the Labyrinth of Amala, or the first Kalpa completed, we're able to get a bit of money in order to buy that physical resisting Magatama, as well as preparing for a few demons, and with some experience, we're able to take on the next challenge, and holy shit, was this a fucking doozy. With my loadout displayed here, I'll go over what the purpose of each of them are. Refrigerate for that freeze and secunda effect will be very powerful. Scald for that Tarunda effect will also be very powerful. Secunda because I had it on me. Taunt for that defense debuff just in case I needed it. And the Force Boost and Gale Storm for the extra damage for Force because that is my hardest hitting in magic attack. As for demon allies, I recommend you bring demons with debuff spells, also other buff spells, and at least one good healer. Ame no Uzume will still be important for this fight.
And there's our fiend right now. Let's see what you got. Nice meeting you, kid. Don't take this too personal. I'll give you 10 minutes to decide. Which would you rather end up in? A coffin or a dumpster?
Just like how Matador was meant to be the hard lesson that utilizing buffs and debuffs were absolutely necessary to make progress in Nocturne, Dante is the hard lesson that utilizing every affinity aside from physical resistance will probably be the bad idea. I don't know what I'm saying here. But yeah, Dante's pretty hard is what I'm trying to say. That's the lesson there. Okay, let's talk about it. So, Dante has one interesting rule that you should keep aware of. Sukukaja is half useless in this fight. If you want to know what I mean by that, you're basically going to be unable to fucking do anything to him in terms of, you know, dodging him. So, to explain what I mean there, we gotta talk about Dante's moves. He starts out with two interesting attacks, Rebellion and ENI. What Rebellion does is a bland physical attack that has a high chance to crit, and is not. It doesn't miss. It does not miss. It will hit you no matter what. There's no way to dodge it. I believe it has a limit on how it can hit you, like an accuracy percentage, but overall you're not gonna dodge Rebellion. As for ENI, you're also not gonna dodge it. But I just want to talk about this for a second. ENI has received the biggest fucking glow-up I have ever seen in any upgrade, any remake, remaster, mod, whatever. So, what ENI did in base Nocturne was basically basic attack 2, electric boogaloo. It did more damage for 3 MP. That's what ENI did back then. And you had a chance to dodge that bitch. What ENI does here is that it does a little bit more damage. Okay. It doesn't miss. Okay. It has a crit rate increase from, I believe, 13% to 30%. Okay. And what is it? What is it with these moves having the debuff effects on them? Because why the fuck does ENI drop defense and evasion by 1 on hit? Why the fuck does it do that? And we haven't even talked about his goddamn buff spells and shit. All right. So he has Holy Star, which is basically his version of Dekunda. So if you apply a debuff on him, just one, it could just be one. No, the fuck you didn't. No, you didn't. It's done. First move he has, he'll prioritize it. I mean, I guess this footage does contradict that over-exaggeration, because he doesn't really use Dekunda on those debuffs for agility, but I guess he doesn't really care because it's not like he's missing anyway. But he also comes in with Phase 2 with his other support skill, which is Provoke. Taunt 2 has a little MP boost every time he uses it, but it doesn't really matter because all bosses have MP, unlimited MP anyways. But along with Phase 2, he has 2 new moves. Does he? No, only one. He starts utilizing a skill known as Twosome Time, which is an all-target gun and element attack that has a chance to, has a chance to cast Panic. And Panic can be very bad, especially if you have Kamagori, because that shit is weak to all ailments, including Panic. So that could be bad, but thankfully when he uses it, he doesn't really inflict Demi-Fiend or Copa with it, so yeah, we're pretty good there. But with all I've said there, how do we beat Dante? despite my crash out earlier, I think Dante might be my favorite boss in the early game for one specific reason. It's how smart it is once you figure out how to beat him. So, to beat Dante, it's actually very simple. And I think you can even do it without a physical resistance. Well, of course you can. Anything is possible in this goddamn game. Two people beat the fucking run solo. But in order to beat Dante, what you need to do is this. Utilize the first phase, putting buffs on yourself to keep yourself alive. Spam Rakukaja the whatever chance you get, and make sure your health's topped up with Kokuri Hime's Medea and Diorama. However, once you reach phase 2, he starts utilizing Holy Star less and less. He'll prioritize Provoke to keep your defense at a minimum. This is when you can come in with Scald or Fangbreaker or just Tarunda to make it so that Dante's physical attacks on his end are decreasing while our attacks are increasing so that we be able to do more damage. He does resist everything in the game aside from Almighty, which is kind of bull, but it does make it easier to survive when you keep Dante's physical ability to a minimum. And here you can see Twosome Time. Trust me, that could have been worse. If it inflicted panic on just one guy, I probably would have been fucked. Especially on Demi. But, thankfully, thanks to strategic ability and a lot of luck, we managed to take out Dante right here and right now. After surviving Dante's ambush, he decides to give us an explanation on what he's doing here. It turns out that the old man from downstairs has told him that we're in a battle royale with him and the other fiends, and he's basically out for our heads. But he decides to let us live because he's impressed by our skill, telling us that eventually we'll meet each other again if we continue down the line of darkness, or something like that. But with Dante satiated for now, we decide to head into the Mantra headquarters, as we were fucking supposed to, and talk to Gozu Tenno to see what the hell we can do. Inside the Mantra headquarters is nothing really special. I mean, the random encounters are a little bullshit, specifically the Onis, because they can come in with Berserk and basically squad wipe the entire party. But, yeah, it's just... When I say don't worry about it, or just be careful, I'm really just saying pray you don't get ambushed and Berserk to death, because that can happen, and it sucks. But what the fuck can you do, man? It's an RPG from 2003. Anyways, we meet up with Gozu Tenno at the top of the Mantra HQ, and he tells us that he can give us unimaginable power as long as we choose to serve him. We say no because we don't like him, and he tells us that if we want Magatsui, we should join with his armies at the Assembly of Nihilo, which is that little circle turtle rock base all the way back in Ginza. And I guess that gives us another place to go to. And according to some demons in Ginza, they say that a human leader is running the Nihilo, so perhaps that is Hikawa, who we need to look for. But aside from that, and aside from the two demons that Gozu Tenno gives us, we have to get another thing out of the way, and it's the east of Ikebukuro. By heading to the doorway right side of the Mantra stairwell, we head through this little corridor here, and we come across a room that has a red aura and the menorah flickering its flames, meaning that a fiend is not too far, just like with Matador. And this is where we fight the next fiend, the skeletal monk of Hindu myth, Daisojo.
Are you the fiend who has been seduced by the power of darkness? Man is destined to die and the world to end. Yet still you challenge the order of the universe. Do not lose sight of the truth, demi-fiend. Your struggle against death is futile. No matter how many menorahs you gather, the shadow on your heart will not be lifted. It is my duty to save those who have gone astray. Let me be your guide. Receive my salvation. Accept your death.
My sutra shall grant you eternal rest.
So, in the original game, Daisojo was arguably the easiest fiend because out of all the fiends in the game, he had a unique property, or a unique quote or meme about him. Daisojo was the one fiend who didn't have Dekaja to cancel the team buffs, or Dukunda to cancel out his debuffs. Now, given the changes, Daisojo now possesses Dekaja, so at least he has some sort of way to balance out things in his favor, as you see here. He also has Makakaja to boost his magic effects, which is kind of fucking weird for us because magic is his whole game plan. And he also utilizes another trait added to Insaniax, where Hama and Mudo skills, Light and Dark, do damage now. And his magic and those skills are beefy as shit. And that potential is a little increase, just a little twist of the knife as well. But that's not even talking about his worst move. Meditation is the skill Life Drain, where it sucks HP and MP from a target, and is basically a stronger version of that shit. And Daisojo is probably the worst early game boss for magic build players because you need that MP to cast your spells. And if he's taking that shit thanks to meditation, you can't play the game. And if Kikuri Hime gets hit with the meditation, she can't heal us. So we're kind of screwed. But there is a way to do it. Like I said, he doesn't have Dekunda, so using debuff spells that decreases agility and offense mean that his meditation won't hit as hard and will very rarely hit if he's at minimum. And it also is a good idea to boost our buffs as well, just for the sake of it. It also helps casting those buffs because a unique thing you could do with enemies with Dekaja or Dekunda is waste their turn canceling the debuffs or buffs so that you can make sure they're not killing you with their offensive output.
My words shall erase your karma.
Once we push Daisojo into the second phase, he begins to utilize Light and Dark skills as well as Makakaja and Dekaja, as you see on here. And again, his offensive output is a lot more dangerous thanks to this ability where Hama and Mudo now do damage. And because Demi-Fiend himself doesn't really have anything to nullify those effects, he's specifically the one target a thought occurred, actually. So, Mayaka here nulls Dark, and Kikuri Hime nulls Light. However, if it pulls off here... Okay. Thankfully, Kikuri isn't weak to Dark. However, Yaka is weak to Light. So, if Daisojo were to use Mahama, that would have killed him. Or at least he had a very high chance of dying. But, like I said earlier, using Refrigerate in order to lower Daisojo's accuracy is the plan here, as well as triggering him to use Dekaja. Mainly Makakaja, so we could just, do as much magic damage as possible. And Spirit Well, that I've acquired from the Moa Ryu all the way at the start of the game, which is a passive that allows you to get a little bit of MP based on how much MP you have in the max gauge after every action you take that isn't pass. That just isn't pass. Thanks to this, Kikuri Hime is able to get basically an infinite amount of MP, but it does take some time for her MP to recharge. I also put this on Demi-Fiend later down the line once I get my hands on it, but... Oh wow, third phase.
Fool! How long will you remain attached to life? You shall be consumed by the fire of your worldly desires.
Casting Beast Eye one more time to increase his turn count gives him a whole whopping 3 actions to move. And god damn it, that is annoying. He goes for Makakaja again to keep his magic up top. But that's not even the worst part. No, it is not. Because he starts to utilize his next moves of his kit, Concentrate. Now, Concentrate or Mind Charge in the Persona games is a skill that allows you to basically 2.5 times your magic output, or the next magic output. And holy shit, just look at this. I gotta say, the bosses have actually been a little bit of a difficulty spike. Even Matador took me some attempts, almost a soft lock, so I think it's time to lock in. So, when it comes to Daisojo, What we mainly want to rely on is something that he hasn't really pulled yet, but if he does pull it, it's a lot more of a run killer than what Light and Dark could do to us. And what we want to bring is the Magatama Iyomante, which allows us to nullify mind attacks. Because Daisojo's deadliest move is a skill called Preach, which inflicts mind-based magic damage to the entire party. And Demi-Fiend is the one person we do not want this to hit. It's also a good way of canceling his turns, and with each member of the party, Yaka, Kikuri, and Simon, or Demi, nullifying each of Daisojo's 3 attack types, it basically is a way that he'll end his turn if he doesn't use meditation, which, as we get later to the stages, he'll use less often in favor of his other moves. So, in the later stages of the fight, it's mainly his concentrate that we want to worry about, but there is yet another trick to this, Tetraja. Tetraja stones are in the inventory of the Demi-Fiend, and using them allows us to survive both light and dark attacks for what should be the whole fight until he triggers them, but yeah. He does actually go for Preach, which puts the panic on Jack, but yeah, it's just Jack and not Simon, which is what I prefer. But with that out of the way, with all damage nullified, and with his health going repeated into the red, it doesn't take long for Daisojo to finally go down. Defeating Daisojo gives us the Menorah of Eternity, the second Menorah we're going to need in order to get further into the Labyrinth of Amala. But aside from that, it's time to continue with the main story, which is to raid the Assembly of Nihilo, which seems to be the faction that is led by Hikawa, the person who started this mess in the first place. But before we do that, I want to make sure that we have everything we need for the Demi-Fiend, which is basically Magatamas and items. Obviously, you can buy the items from any shop that's in Ikebukuro, Shibuya, or Ginza, mainly Shibuya and Ikebukuro. But for Magatama, we're going to go over every single one that he should have by now, which is basically the first row of Magatama in the menu. So, Maragaru we get at the start of the game, Watsumi we get for beating Fornius, Shiranui and Iyomante we should get at the store at Shibuya. If you didn't buy them at the very start, we should be able to buy them now. As for the other Magatamas, Ankh for healing, Hifumi for force, and Kamagori for physical resistance. The physical skills should all have been in the Great Underpass at Ginzo in that one shop. It's also a good way to buy chakra drops in that shop. It's also another priority. And lastly, for the final Magatama, Kamuto is what we should have gotten from Thor. So with that out of the way, we should have every single Magatama in the game. In the early game, what the fuck is wrong with me? So by heading back to Ginza and going into this weird dome-shaped area of, well, Ginza, we finally come across the Assembly of Nihilo. And according to the mantra, they already destroyed the place, and all the Nihilo have retreated somewhere. They don't really give it much thought, though. They just say that they won, and not much else. I can see why the mantras... I can see why they made the mantra comprise of nothing but Unis. But yeah, by exploring some more, we head to the lower layers of the Nihilo base and find Hijiri in the core. And he tells us, as we expected, the Nihilo wasn't exactly dealt with as much as the mantra think they have. They're actually hiding deeper in the base. And thanks to Hijiri, we're ready to explore the next dungeon, which is, well, the Assembly of Nihilo. And this dungeon is kind of half and half for me. But first, let's talk about this little mini encounter before we explore the dungeon. So this Kopatingo and this Incubus, well, I said they ambushed us, but really we ambushed them, and they call... This wasn't in the original. They summon a shit ton of Kopatingus as backup. This is actually kind of hard. But, yeah, Scald makes quick work of these guys. So, the main point of the Nihilo base is by collecting 4 keys that we could use to access the very bottom of the Nihilo base and open its way to the core. The only problem is that we need to explore the dungeon in its entirety, and holy fuck is this dungeon long! It's comprised of 3 floors that revolve around this little elevation system and this very cool, like, Magatsuhi vortex that's leading, again, into the core. But Yeah, like I said, it just goes on for longer than it needs to. The more you go on, the longer it feels, and... Well, the only saving grace is that the music is not too terrible, and the mini-bosses are pretty sick. So, let's go over them. The first mini-boss is on the first floor, and it's an Eligor that summons two discs as backup. Now, the Eligor himself is weak to electric attacks, which, thanks to Demi-Fiend, can be easily exploited. But the main issue is with the supports on the discs. So, discs mainly prioritizes spamming ailment moves such as Mute Gaze and Stun Gaze, which, as they respectively do, Mute silences all magic attacks, and if it hits Simon, it means he can't cast his fucking spells. It hits Kikirti, she can't fucking heal. And as for Stone Gaze, what it does is inflict stone on the party member it hits if they don't know Dark or Death. And what Stone does is immobilize the party member so that they can't really do anything, and if they're hit with a physical attack, they're gone, they're dead. And Eligor puts up a good fight, mainly thanks to Dis getting the Stone Gaze proc on Kikirti, which allows him to use Berserk and kill her, but yeah, it's not really much to speak of. Eligor actually goes down not too much. We're able to revive Kikirti, and we're able to pick up the White Killa, so we can continue. So this is a good time to talk about the way that the Assembly of Nihilo works in terms of its gimmick and dungeon design. So it mainly revolves around these switches and these platforms that have elevated bridges between them. And you basically have to hit the right ones to get the right configuration, to get the right path to move forward. And that alone isn't a problem. It's actually pretty okay, but it just takes forever, and as someone who's impatient as I am, it just feels forever. It just feels so goddamn annoying. It's like trying to play a Zelda game, but having to get through the fucking tutorial area, or like the beginning area, and it just taking forever. It's just... my ADHD. But yeah, the Assembly of Nihilo is somewhat difficult because most of the enemies rely, if not on physical attacks, rely on magic versatility, which is why getting all the Magatamas is pretty good. I think I would probably recommend not Iomonte. I'd say Watatsumi for mainly ice resistance, or maybe Hifumi for force resistance, because Kopatengu and Incubus spamming their force-based skills like Zanma or Galestorm would probably be pretty bad. And Demi-Fiend's electric attacks will definitely come in handy, as well as from Raichu if you have him. Yeah, just because mainly you're going to deal with Fomorians, I believe they're what they're called. It's the big troll-looking guys. As well as Fornius, who apparently rose back from the fucking dead because he's here to spam Icy Death at us. He still maintains his electric weakness, so we can also abuse that. Yeah, we just keep doing that, and then we manage to get to the second part of the Nihilo base, which relies on Eligor coming back from the fucking dead, which... I just realized, they're demons, they're coming back from hell. I thought we were in hell, but who knows? Hell could be everywhere, for all I know at this point. But yeah, Eligor still has his electric weakness, and he summons Yakas this time instead of Dis, which means that they're also weak to... Oh wait, no they're not. They're weak to light. But they have a weakness to exploit, so yeah. It's actually easier, because they go down faster, and they only heal him, and not spam us with ailments. Get fucked, horseman. So yeah, Eligor comes back, I believe, like 4 or 5 times. I'm not kidding. And every time we fight him, he brings up a new summon. He'll summon Dis, as I said earlier. He summoned Yaka, like before. He'll summon Incubus, I believe, and then he'll have one last fight where he summons between those 3. Is how I believe it is. And they're all painfully easy because 2 of those demons he summons have weaknesses we can exploit, and he still maintains the electric weakness, as well as having no immunity to ice, so having Refrigerate basically cripples his fucking accuracy. Yeah, it doesn't really matter that much to us until we get to the final part of the fight, or the final part of this part of the dungeon, where we fight the upgrade to Eligor. The next boss is Berdith. Now, Berdith is basically, like I said, a direct upgrade from Eligor, but the difference is in terms of summons as well as magic versatility. He does use some physical, but he mainly will rely on his magic attacks. And, oh my god, I just almost shot myself in the head there. But yeah, he relies on Miragion and Hellfire for fire coverage, which is pretty bad, but that's also why I have Jackie with me. I believe he's weak... no, I don't believe, I know. He's weak to ice, and the Succubus are weak to light, which thankfully Kikirihime can take full advantage of. The succubus are actually kind of dangerous because they can spam sleep moves, which is pretty bad, because if they hit, they can also use the other skill, which is called Eternal Rest. And what that does is instant kill anyone that's afflicted with sleep.
Does that sound like bullshit? Good, because it is.
But, yeah, Barrett himself isn't too bad. He goes down after a couple of attempts, and wait, no, not attempts. A couple of Storm Gales. Sorry, I'm insane! For the third and final part of the dungeon is where we get to the most annoying part of it, and is why I hate the Assembly of Nihilo so much. We come across these Kaiwan creatures, these star-like motherfuckers, and what they do is waste my time even more than this Twitch animation already does! So, to explain what you should do, is do this. When you come down on the ladder from the middle right segment over there, what you want to do is immediately head to the bottom center, and then trigger that second Kaiwan animation. Take the ladder by going straight up, then go at the very, very bottom floor, take the ladder again, be in the very center, hit that button to switch undo the second Kaiwan transition, head to the left side, and take the middle left path to trigger the third animation, and trigger that as well. And then finally go all the way back around to get the very first one. That way you're not going back and forth turning certain switches on and off, because that's what they trick you into doing. As long as you follow that procedure to turn the second Kaiwan switch, the third Kaiwan switch, and first, you'll be able to get it done in the fastest possible time. Please keep that in mind. It'll make this dungeon playthrough a little bit more bearable for you guys. So anyways, exploring the green area of the Nihilo, we search the whole place till we find the Killa, and we realize that instead of finding it in a cache cube, the Kaiwan have took it for themselves, and it's up to us to hunt them down to get it back, or to steal it from them. And it brings us to this area where there's 8 doors to choose from, and the left side third door is where the 3 main Kaiwan that we're looking for are hiding, but I actually recommend opening all the other doors so that you can get EXP from the fake mini-bosses. And as for these mini-bosses, they're nothing more than just a single Kaiwan or a Kelpie that just heals itself over and over again. It's also a good way to get your MP back. And once you have cleared these rooms, have a save terminal that's not too far from the door, and open up to find the 3 main Kaiwan holding the green Killa. And holy shit, is this boss not hard, but just bullshit. So I haven't touched on it actually at all because it doesn't pop up as good as it does now. But this place is not really the assembly of Nihilo as much as the assembly of fucking Mudo. Because holy shit, does half the fucking roster in the enemies love to spam Mudo. And it's not as bad as they mostly rely on damage rather than that instant kill proc, but not all skills are like this. There are some new skills that revolve around the instant kill proc that Zephyr decided to leave in, and the Kaiwan are the ones that love to use it the most. Damnation and Millennia Curse are both skills that rely on this, and Millennia Curse is a lower chance, by the way, and that got Demi on the first fucking hit.